The next type of reflection that I have is specular reflection. So I will start by writing that up here. You will also sometimes see the word glossy associated with specular. And specular is a little more particular than diffuse. In order for a specular reflection to happen, a photon comes in and hits my surface at an angle. That photon is then reflected off perpendicular to the angle at which it hit. So if I draw a line here, an imaginary line, this angle here and this angle here are the same number. We'll call that number I. I is the angle of incidence. When this happens, fewer photons are absorbed and more of them are directly reflected, creating the appearance of a highlight. Or a shiny spot. Specular reflection is extraordinarily common. You see it in almost every object. In some, the highlight is a little bit sharper and more pronounced, and in others it's a little bit duller, more photons are being absorbed. But you see specular highlights everywhere. Sometimes they appear to be the same color as the base surface, sometimes they appear to be a more intense color, and sometimes they're a completely different color. To go along with this, anytime I have a specular reflection, there's a possibility that the surface will have some flaws. Either it's dirty on the top or there's some kind of etching directly underneath. We call this an almost subcutaneous effect. What happens in those cases is that instead of having a single specular highlight, I have a multitude of specular highlights all happening together. When this happens, it's referred to as a glossy specular reflection. So a glossy specular reflection is a multitude of specularity caused by surface detail, either dirt above or subcutaneous etches below. The term that you'll hear used alongside a glossy reflection is roughness. Roughness is the amount of gloss in the specular highlight. So the more rough a reflection is, the less perfect it will be. That's a specular reflection. They're extremely common. You usually see them mixed in with a diffuse reflection. So the last thing that I'll mention here is that diffuse plus specular equals an object color. And that's pretty typical for any kind of solid object. Not your translucent or transparent objects, but any kind of solid surface is going to be some level of diffusion plus some level of specularity.